So good morning to one and all. We are going to start with our last chapter of this unit, that is your unit 2. Okay, this is the fourth chapter of your unit 2, and we have completed fifth chapter first, and then we are coming back to this chapter. And rest four chapters we have completed. They are the important chapters of this unit. This chapter, as I told you, is like being considered more as per your practical, what you're going to do it in the practical. There are two programs you have to do it from this chapter, and it's there in the practical list also. Okay, so it's a very, like you can say, very less number of chance we can have for having a theory question from this chapter, but still, if I'll just say that one question, okay, maximum. So for that need only we are going to learn this chapter. So the chapter name is what you're working with files. Now students, you just have to understand in the whole enterprise subject, whenever you're going to see this kind of chapter name working, okay, with files or working with servlets or working with like JSP, so you have to understand that chapter is all talking about the practicals. Okay, so like whichever concepts are being covered in that specific chapter, which starts with this kind of thing like working with, so it is expecting the practical implementation more than your theory concepts. Okay, so it is like something what you have learned in the rest chapters, and then whole the things have been implemented in this kind of chapters. Fine. So but still, like, we are going to complete this chapter today only. We are not having much things in this particular chapter. It's just two things we are going to learn. That is, one is how you're going to upload your files into the servlet, or you can say in your server on, and the second one is how you can download the existing file from the server. Okay, so these two examples we are going to learn today, and then we are going to learn about the annotations. So what annotations are and how it can be used, that I'll let you know. So first we are going to start with the first thing, that is what you're uploading the files to the server in the servlet. Okay, so as we know that we, when we are going to create an application, a web application, we are going to have number of types of files which we are going to interconnect to each other, which they can communicate and can serve the users and the client as per their requirement from the application. Okay, so like this uploading file means you're going to create one servlet file, and that servlet file, but obviously which is been written, it is written for your server side. Okay, so this is like a server side technology, as we know. So whenever we are going to code in servlet, we are just trying to code it for the server, and we are making the server to work as we want to make it work. So one thing which we want to implement is that when we are going to code it in servlet, we want to give an option to our client where they can upload their files to the server. Okay, so for making that possible, where I'm allowing my client to upload some files, okay, from the client page, and they can upload that file to the servers directly, and that happens only when you're going to write something in your servlet code. Okay, for to do and for happen, for having that all things happen, so you have to write some code in your servlet file, and that servlet file is going to help the client to have that uploading of file. If I can just give you an example, that there are many web applications available which is going to give you an online medicines. You just have to order it by giving the prescription. So in that kind of applications, you have to upload your prescriptions of the doctors, and then only they are going to verify it, and then they can give you the medicines. Okay, so here that verification and all is not important. Just the thing is that you're going to have an option for uploading the files into the server. Fine, and then the server is going to work accordingly what you have uploaded. Fine, so this is how you can also implement in your project. As number of times I'm giving you an options and examples that how you can make your project more useful. So this is also like one thing you can implement in your project if you really want to have this kind of option for your users and the clients who is going to use your application, your web application. You can give an option for uploading, so that file can be browsed from the local machine of a client, and they can upload it to the server. Okay, so this option can also possible, and I'm talking about all these options possible, which are possible in the form of Java. Like if you are using Java for your project, then I'm giving this kind of examples. Even you can do it for the another technologies which you're going to make use while making the project. But then the syntax and then class and then methods are going to differ. Okay, now we are going to see the example for uploading the file to a server using the servlet code. For that need you have to understand here two things. Okay, whenever you're going to write an HTML file, you have to make the method which you're going to write inside your form tag. It has to be, and it must be post method. Okay. Secondly, you have to make use of one more attribute, that is your ENC type, that is your encryption type. So you have to define this encryption type in your form tag, where you're going to define the method also, and you're going to define the action also, where it has to get redirect to after the first page to the another page. So that file name also you have to mention the method as post, and you have to mention one more attribute, that is what your encryption type. So which type of like encryption method you're going to use, so that you're going to use is multi-part slash form hyphen data. So this exactly what is written over here, you have to write it in your HTML file. Okay, so now how we are going to use that, we'll see the example directly. So I'm just considering that I have an HTML file, and in that HTML file what I'm doing, I'm just giving an option where I'm just allowing the user to browse a file and let the file to be uploaded into the servlet. Okay, now what we can do, we can have a form tag, we can just write an action attribute. Why we are writing the action attribute, we are mentioning the file name of the servlet. So here it is go I have written, but in the next servlet file the file name is given, which I have given is different, like this upload servlet. Okay, so here what you can write, action equals to upload servlet. Like either you can do here, you can make it upload servlet, or you can just go to the servlet file and change the name. That changing part you have to do, students, because whenever I just give the names, I don't keep that track what name I am giving. So please at least uh, do that by your own. Okay, so we have a form tag, we have the action attribute, and where I have written where it has to get redirect to, it is a servlet file. So just now we have seen that what is the file name I have given, that is your upload servlet, and which method I told you we are going to use must, that is your post method. Okay, and one more attribute which you are going to add, that is your encryption type, and you have to define what, multi-part slash form hyphen data. This is going to allow me to have the file in the encrypted format, which is going to upload it in your server. Okay, because so for the example, like client is in one place and server is in the another place, we are going to remotely upload the file. So that file needs to be encrypted, otherwise what will happen, in the third party in between this client and server can take your data and can read the data if it is in the human readable format. Fine. Now, once we have done that, we have defined the method and we have defined the encryption type also. And this particular encryption type is not being given by your Oracle, like who's actually having the whole copyright of Java. So it is not providing this encryption type. It has been defined by some other company who has actually developed this encryption type specifically for the servlet. Okay, to implement this kind of uploading thing, we are having this multi-part option, but not from the Oracle, but from the some other company, that is Orele. Okay, we'll see in the next slide, we have the implementation of that also. Now here what we are going to do, we are just going to create one type of, you can say, the browse button, where I'm just defining the input tag, in which I'm saying that type should be equals to file. So this is going to allow me to browse the file. Okay, normally what we used to do, if we create the text field, so we just write type equals to text. So here what we are writing, type equals to file. So that means it is going to allow me to browse the file from the local machine, from the local drives. Okay, now we'll have one submit button and the name which I have given over it, so that is your upload. Okay, and then it is been clicked. Once it has been clicked, what is going to happen, it is going to redirect to the file name which I have mentioned it over here in the action attribute. Okay, I told you already, we can replace this name by upload servlet because it is the servlet name which I have given over here. Fine. So now when we come to this upload servlet file, what we are going to see is we are going to have 4 packages. The 3 packages are the same one which we are using it till date. Okay, so that is your io.star, that is your servlet.star. No need to mention the servlet exception separately. Okay, so just write servlet.star and servlet.http.star. So these three packages we are all using, like, since we started with the first practical of your servlet. Okay, now the only one package which you need to implement and you have to write it just for this uploading, not even for downloading you have to write, because there is some other parameters we have there which we can use and we can make the downloading happen. Okay, so for uploading you have to make use of a package called as what, a com.orale. Orale is like an organization, like an oracle, who has actually developed this multi-part uh, thing for having this uploading, and that should be into the encrypted format. So it has been coming from a package called as com.orally.servlet.star. So you don't need to even remember this multi-part request here. You can simply write com.orally.servlet.star. Okay, and then you can have an class, you can create your own class, extend the http servlet. I hope you all remember that why we need HTTP servlet. Okay, so this is like one class available in this second package, which is going to allow me to have the servlet code in my Java file. Okay, servlet file and Java file are not same. Servlet file as such, there's nothing. It's just a Java file where I'm trying to implement a servlet code. Okay, then you have an option that is either your do post and do get method. So whenever I'm going to make use of servlet, http servlet class, you have do post and do get method. Whenever I'm going to make use of the first package, that is your javax dot servlet dot star, so there I don't have http servlet, I have just a servlet interface. Okay, I hope you all remember this. So we have two available options where I can make the usage of servlet in my program in the Java file by making use of either servlet interface, which comes from your first package, and then HTTP servlet class, which comes from your second package. Whenever the word called as HTTP comes, it always comes from your second package. It is protocol specific. Fine. And if I'm using the second package class for creating the servlets, I have either do post or do get method along with your HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response interface. Fine. And whenever I talk about the first package, that is your just servlet.star, which is not protocol specific, I have servlet interface. So what I can write, implements servlet, because it's an interface, and instead of writing this method I can just replace it with service method. Fine. And once it is service method I have written, I don't have to write a word called as http because it is not protocol specific, as I told you. So we have to just remove this http. It will be just your servlet request and servlet response. Fine. So I hope this all things we have done it, I think, enough number of time. I'm just revising it again and again so that you'll remember. Okay, and we'll try to throw an exception, that is your servlet exception and IO exception, which comes one from your IO.star and which comes from your servlet.star. Fine. We are just going to set the content type in which form the client is going to get the response. First, I have defined that it is going to be in the human readable format, that is in the text form, and then it is going to be displayed in your HTML page. Okay, and to make that display happen, the response should be displayed. So we are going to make use of print writer class, and that comes also from your io.star package. Fine. Now we are going to make use of one important class which is actually going to allow me to have that uploading. So that is what your multi-part request. Now, once I'm making use of this multi-part request, what I'm going to do, I'll just create an object. I'll have a new operator. I'll have a constructor for that. And I'm just going to make the use of few parameters over here. Okay, so now here what is going to happen, so if I'm just trying to upload something, I'm just going to make use of the request object. So I'm just trying to have the request of uploading into the server. So here, not going into that level that I want to upload it into the server, just consider it that I have a file which I want to just upload it into one of the drive, that is like D drive, considering it is having one new folder, that is new folder. Okay, and also you can just write it in your server side, like servlet code, whichever we write, it is written for the server side. Okay, so here also you can mention the drive name in server where it has to be, get uploaded, where it is going to be placed once the client is going to upload the file. Okay, so that path name you have to define it over here. Okay, so now because your server means it's not like the huge data center which comes into your mind, it is not like that every time the server's definition. Okay, one local machine can also be converted into the server. Fine, if you have two machines placed, one by one together, and then one machine can be working for you as a client and the another one can work for you as a server. Okay, so don't make that definition of server that server is something big which is been placed remotely every time, and it is like something that having data center picture in your mind, it is very large. No, it is like one local machine with a good configuration, also you can convert it into your server. Okay, so just have to mention the path where it is being going to be uploaded once the client is going to upload that file. So I'm going to fetch that value, fetch that request from the client using the request object because it is coming from the HTML file. Okay, and you're going to mention the path name where the file is going to get placed. Understood? So now if I would have not have this particular multi-part request class, I have to write all the logic of having that uploading, and it is not going to be a small code. Okay, so that's why it is like a beauty of Java, you can say, that we have numbers of things which is like defined, we just have to implement it. Okay, but you should know that which thing is being used for what. So that is like one thing you have to understand in Java, then only it will be like your life is easier in Java whenever you're going to code it. Fine. So this was all about your uploading the file into your servlet. I hope you have understood. Now we're going to learn the another example for downloading a file from a server in servlet. Okay, just considering that here that we have one file that is something known as home.jsp file, and it is been placed inside your E drive that you want to download it. Okay, so there is an existing file named as what, home.jsp, and it is placed in your E drive. Now what we are going to do, we are going to first design it. We are going to have an HTML file. I have not written whole those form tag and all those things. What we are going to have, simply first I'll make you understand. We have a web page, HTML page, where I'm going to have one link. Okay, and that link is been written as what, download the JSP file. So once you click onto that link, what is my expectation is either it should get downloaded directly, and once it is downloaded I may be able to open it. Okay, or the other option is what, like before downloading, once you click onto the link, what happens generally, it just give me the view of that file and it gets open into the new tab. I hope everyone has, at least once that experience. You have both the options available whenever you use any type of web application. Either you can just download, like once you click on it, it's not completely in your hand, in the clients, because it has been something defined into the servlet file or into the server side files. How it is defined, that whether the client should have that option to view that file before downloading it, or once the file is been, or once the link has been clicked, it is going to download it automatically, not giving that viewing option. Okay, so it is completely dependent on how we are going to define that file is going to, like, gets downloaded for the client. So here just one thing you have to remember, we have created an hyperlink. Okay, and we have just given a name called as download the JSP file, like this is going to be hyperlink. And once it is been clicked, where I have to get redirect to download servlet file, that is your servlet file which we are going to design it in a server. Now before we go to this servlet file, we have to understand like many things before we go directly to the program of your servlet code. Okay, so here you have to understand that your servlet file first of all is going to read the content of the file which you are trying to read it. Okay, once it is been read means was it is just going to find out the file which the client is trying to download it. Okay, now here that reading and writing, don't consider it that the content which is present inside the file, the servlet is going to read that. No, it is just going to check whether the file is available or not into the given path where, from where the download should happen. Okay, that is something we known as what, reading. And if it is available, then it will make the use of write option and it is going to be downloaded. So now this reading and writing happens normally in your file input stream, or you can say in your byte stream and character stream classes. Okay, so when I talk about just a file input stream, why it is used, it is been used for reading. Okay, reading the file. So now here what I'm going to make use of, that is the stream classes, which is going to help me or the servlet file to read the file which is like been asked by the client to be get or to get downloaded, and then if it is available then it is going to download it. So the downloading option is been like done with the help of a write method. Okay, now this was your first thing. Second thing is what, you just have to make the server understand, and you need to inform the server that you're going to setting the content type, that is what, application slash octet hyphen stream. That means you're going to make use of stream for having the reading and writing or for request and response. Okay, you're going to make use of an application which is going to support the mime type of attachment, that is multimedia type of attachment. And this application slash octet hyphen stream content type is being considered in the form of binaries, because if you are going to upload the file, that encryption type should be there. There should be some encryption while uploading a file, because the third party should not be able to read it. Similarly, if you're trying to download something, again it is going to come to you remotely with using a network. Okay, even though it is placed one like uh, together into the same place, but still it is not going to happen by connecting some wires. It is not going to happen locally, it is going to have over the network. Okay, so the downloading also needs some encryption type. So we are going to make use of application octet stream, which has been considered as what, your binary file. Okay, so after that, this parameter you have to use while having the downloading option, because it is going to allow you to download the mime type of data. It can be your like word files, it can be your PDF files, it can be your image file, audio file, video file, any file you can talk about, you can download it with the help of this parameter if you define it. Okay, third thing is what, now as I told you, it is like going to work an application, the application which is going to help a client to open the document, to open the image, to open the audio, to open the video in a defined or the format which the client is want to say it. Say for example, like if I want to download some document file, so it will allow you to see that file using the word processor. If you want to download some PDF file, it will give you that option to read the PDF file using some PDF viewer file, PDF viewer application. Okay, so like that way, it is going to have all the possible types of application which will make you to help, or which will help you to have the different types of file which you can download it and view it easily. Now, another concept which you have to understand before we start with this, that is what, your content disposition. Now, whenever we talk about the MIME, okay, that is your multimedia type of data which is going to be supportable, and this is like one type of a protocol which we are using to support the multimedia type of data which can be attached. Okay, so you have a word called as content disposition. Now, this content disposition word you have to use in your program, which is going to help me to provide some information about the body part of your servlet code. Okay, now here I gave you the example, if you remember, that while downloading a file you have two options: either it has been downloaded directly, or it is been giving an option to the client first to view the file and then you can download it. Okay, so that two things, one, directly downloading part is something being known as what, attachment. And then the second option which I gave you, that once you have the displaying of the data and then download it, that is been known as what, inline. Fine. So now if I want to make that possible for my client, whether I want to give an attachment option like direct download once the link is clicked, or else I just want to make the body part of the content to be displayed to the client, that like coming in your inline. So either of the option I will have to give it to the client. Fine. So for giving that two things is going to come under your one concept, that is something known as content disposition. So you have to make your servlet also understand that you are going to make use of content disposition, and out of that content disposition, which disposition type you are going to use, either it is attachment or inline. And then you'll have some parameter and value. This I'm going to tell you what is all about. Okay, now we'll start with the program. So I have all the three packages which we generally use it, and then we have created our class, and then we have extended HTTP servlet. I told you it's completely your choice to use the do post and do get method because it is dependent on the length of the data which you send it. We have the interfaces, we have created an objects also, we have thrown an exception, we have set the content type of the response, in which form the client is going to get a response, and for that response to be displayed we have used the print writer. Okay, so I hope till here everybody is clear. Okay, now I have defined two variables over here, that is one is file name and one is your file path. Fine. Now considering that, as I always told you, if you have one web application, okay, in the NetBeans, whenever we create one project, so in that main root directory of the web application, all the files which are present inside it, okay, they are going to identify to each other whenever they are being called in any of the file. Okay, so here if I am calling a file called as home.jsp file, which is present inside your project directory somewhere in the E drive which I have located. Okay, so I have given a variable name called as file name, which is going to be having this home.jsp, and then I have defined a file path that is located in your E drive. Okay, now why we have done this we will come to know. Fine. So we have decided the content type. As I told you that we have to define the content type, that is your encryption type. We have defined the content type for the client, in which form the client is going to see the contents. Okay, or after downloading the file, in which form it is going to be seen. It is not in the binary or the encrypted format, the client is be able to see that. So for client we have decided this content type, and we want to have the file, the home.jsp file should be encrypted, and that content type should be going to follow which parameter which we have decided, that is your application slash octet hyphen stream. Fine. So this is going to encrypt your file, and then it is going to use some stream classes to pass this particular JSP file over the network and get it available for the client. Now we have to use a content disposition, as I told you. Okay, so these two statements are very important whenever we try to download a file from the server. Okay, so we are going to have a method called as set header. So if you can see, we have just make use of the response object, as I told you number of times. Whenever we had a get method, we are going to make use of request object. Whenever we had a set method, we are going to make use of response object. Okay, so we have a set header method which is going to actually set the what type of options you are going to give to your client. Either it is going to be an attachment option or it is going to be an inline option. So if you want to define that, you have to define that you're going to make use it under your content disposition. Okay, so this content disposition we have to mention it first, and out of this I have a types. Either I can use attachment or inline, so you have to write here that either of the one. Now I have written attachment over here. That means I just want to make the direct download whenever the link is been clicked. Okay, and then we have a parameter and we have a value. So now this value is what is your this variable. Okay, so I'm calling this variable over here. That means I'm calling actually the file called as home.jsp, and this parameter name you can give it anything if you get confused between these two. Okay, so it's completely your choice. You can just change the parameter name over here. You don't have to give the same name. It is basically the different this file name and the this parameter name and the variable name, but if you get confused you can change it. Now as I told you, we have to make use of stream class. So first what task we have to do, we have to read the file. Read the file means we just have to check whether the file is available or not in the defined path, in the defined directory. So which file I want to read, actually that is your home.jsp file, and from where I want to read it, from the E drive. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call those file name and the drive path in my input stream class constructor. So if you can see over here what I've done, I've just called the drive and I've called the file name. Now what I am doing is over here I'm trying to read that file. Okay, and you can see this while condition, we have used it previously also, saying that whichever file I'm trying to read, this fin object is holding. Okay, currently it is holding what? It is holding home.jsp, and which has been located in your E drive, and from that drive, whichever file I'm trying to read, I'm going to read, and if it is not equals to -1, that means if the file is existing, what I have to do, I have to write it. That means I have to download it. I have to make the client to download that file. Okay, and this is how you're going to have the downloading of a file from your servlet. I hope you have understood this. Now the last topic is what your servlet annotations. Now in servlet annotations, first you have to understand that this annotation is been meant for the servlets. You can use it in your servlet programs. As we all know, whenever we try to create a servlet file, we try to implement or we try to call the web.xml file. And I have shown you that how this web.xml file is going to work, how we have to add this web.xml file while creating a project, and where you can find this web.xml file. These all things I have told you. Okay, I have shown in one of the chapter with the steps, also with the screenshots. Now this file is something being known as what? Deployment descriptor. Okay, now basically whenever we talk about the annotations, this something being implemented and introduced in your servlet, and the servlet API, which is like more than your 3.0 version. Obviously it is been upgraded timely, so whenever I have a servlet version called as 3.0 or higher version than that, so the servlet annotation is been introduced into that 3.0 version, and you can have the servlet annotations in your program by calling a package called as javax.servlet.star. Now why we need this annotation? Okay, and what is annotations? Annotations are something which is being used for declaring the servlet class. Okay, like what web.xml file used to do for us, it is going to keep all the tracking records where the file is been redirected, where one file is been mapped or remapped to the other file. So this all mapping things are being getting stored into your xml file. Secondly, it is holding some configuration details also, that what type of xml version I am using, what encryption type I am using, all those things are being placed inside your xml file. Okay, so if I am making use of servlet annotations, I don't have to make the implementation of web.xml file. That means I don't have to call the web.xml file in my servlet file, or you can say in my web application. Okay, I don't need to add that. If you remember, I told you by default it is unchecked. So if I want to make use, or if I just want to implement web.xml file, we have to check that checkbox to add the deployment descriptor. But when I decide to use the servlet annotations, I don't have to do that checking, and I don't have to include it. But there's one disadvantage. This is not going to work for me when I'm going to use a Glassfish server. It is just going to work for me when I'm going to use an Apache Tomcat as a server. Okay, and this Apache Tomcat server also need a 7 or a later version to support this servlet annotation. Okay, so then only it can replace your web.xml file, and you don't have to include it. Just make use of annotations within your servlet code. And what type of annotations we have in our servlet, like if considering that you are going to make use of Apache Tomcat 7 or later version, and you're going to make use of servlet annotations where you have a servlet API 3.0 or the higher version, so you are not going to make use of web.xml, you are going to make use of annotations. So what all types of annotations you have? So the very first annotation is what your @web servlet, which is going to help you in your program to make the program understand that you are going to declare a servlet. So this means like wherever you're going to write an @web servlet, and after that whatever code you're going to write is been considered as what your servlet code. Okay, similarly I have another you can say annotations, that is your @web init param, which is going to help me to have or we can initialize the parameter for my servlets. I can have other annotation, that is what @web filter, which is going to help me to declare the servlet head and body. Another parameter, another annotation is what your @web listener, which is going to help me to define the interface for my servlet. We have HTTP constraint, we have multi-part config, we have servlet security. Here the HTTP constraint and servlet security is all about talking about the servlet security. So if you want to implement any type of security mechanism in your servlet, Okay, so you can do that. First one is your HTTP specific protocol. It has been applied to all the HTTP protocol methods, and here it is been enforced by the servlet container on the HTTP protocol. Okay, now we are going to have only one example and one annotations, that is what at the rate web servlet. As I told you, theory question is like very less chance we have, we can expect from this chapter. But still, if one question will come, so that can be your annotations. Okay, so it can be like given like this question that explains servlet annotation and give example for that. Okay, so what you can do, you can just explain what annotations are. You can just define or just give 4 to 5 annotations which you will know along with one line description, the way we have given in the last slide. And then you can give one example for that need. I'm just going to make you understand one annotation example over here. Okay, so we're just going to take one, that is, if at all you're going to make use of annotation, normally you use these annotations more. Okay, so that is at the rate web servlet. Why it is being used? It is being used for declaring the configuration of a servlet, or just to define that the servlet code is going to begin. Okay, you have multiple attributes which you can use along with your annotation. So first attribute is what your string name, which is going to just give the name to a servlet. We're going to have a value which is going to pass the value to the name of the servlets which we have defined it in the form of arrays. Then we have a description that is going to describe your servlet, if at all, like it is going to return to me this description of a servlet if at all it is present. It is going to display the name of the servlet if it is present. Okay, and now this is the last example where we are going to implement that at the rate web servlet annotations. Okay, so the whole program is same what we have done it. We have io dot star, you don't need to write these two things separately. We have io dot star, we have servlet dot star, we have servlet dot http dot star. Okay, only one thing which you have to implement, because we want to implement the annotation. So it is coming with what, javax dot servlet dot annotation dot star. Okay, so you don't have to even mention these two things, even though we are not going to make use of web init param, so you don't have to make use of this statement. Just simply you can have annotation dot star. Okay, now how you're going to make use of the annotation, we know this, these are the packages which we are importing over here, and then we are going to make use of annotation, that is something what, at the rate web servlet. Okay, and now you are going to define the value. That value is nothing but the file name of your servlet, that is something being what, simple. Okay, so if you are defining at the rate web servlet over here, you are making the program understand that whatever you are doing out of, like after that, it has been considered as what, your servlet code. Okay, and then we have created a class, we have extended, we had make use of the methods along with the request and response interfaces. We had the content, this is like basic, it's just printing the hello world, nothing else. But then just you have to understand that how you're going to make use of annotations. Okay, so there you have used at the rate web servlet, and you have mentioned and you have declared that this is a servlet class. And what is the name of your servlet class? It is simple. Okay, so this is the example of the annotation. I hope you have understood. We started with the chapter that is you're working with files, and we started with uploading the file, where you have an option that is your multi-part request. As I told you, it is not included in the kit, we have to call it separately, and which is like it is there in the kit, but it is not been designed by the Oracle. Like other API has been designed by Sun Microsystems and the Oracle. Similarly, this particular multi-part request has been designed by the O'Reilly company, which has been imparted into your development kit. Okay, in which we can use it, and it has given that import statement saying that com.o'reilly.servlet. So it is specifically designed for servlet only. Okay, and then we had downloading, where we had again a parameter for downloading and defining the encryption type, that is your application octet stream. And then we had the servlet annotation. I told you if question comes, it will come for the annotation. Okay, and we have number of different types of annotations. We have the attributes for the different types of annotations, but we have made use of only one type, that is what, at the rate web servlet. So just one example I have given to you, and that's more than enough. Okay, that is not been even expected in your chapter, but still, if question comes, you should have something to write in your paper along with the example. Okay, So this is example what we have learned, how we can declare your like at the rate web servlet annotation. Fine. Now this is like I am just ending with the chapter, that is a chapter 4, and we have completed 2 units now. We are going to start with third unit from the next lecture. Most probably it is a Tuesday, the next lecture. So we are going to start on that day. And I think we have completed all the quiz till the last chapter. There's no need of quiz having this chapter. So we'll start with the third chapter from the next third unit from the next lecture. Okay, so almost I think more than 1.5 month we took just to complete 2 units. Even like if you were there in the college, most probably we would have completed 3 units in this August month. So we'll try. We are going into very slow pace so that you can each one of you can understand everything what we are talking about. So if you're not getting anything, just let me know. I'll just stop sharing this. Okay, you have like time 5 minutes. You can ask me the question. If you have any doubts, we can solve it, and I'll just share the attendance link with you all after that. And if you have understood, just let me know that you have understood so that I can I'll not wait for the response or for the question that you have. And yes, you have a holiday tomorrow, so there is no 5 days holiday this time. So you have Saturday, Sunday. Just consider out of 5 days you have 2 days holiday, and enjoy. Any question? I'm just waiting for the question if you have, and if not, then just let me know. Then I can share the attendance link with you all.